ChannelBK here. Brian, thank you for tuning in. Top 20 movies of 2017. Happy New Year. We're going to end this week out strong. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I just changed this list right before filming this. I think I'm probably going to look back on this list like, I wish I changed this or this. But I think it's the 20 films I personally connected with this year. There are a lot of movies on here that, over time, I loved when they came out, but I just kind of forgot about them or didn't love them as much as other people did. So I feel like, or I did rather, because there's some films that surprised me that I kind of fell out of love with. So yeah, I don't give a fuck though. It's my opinion, but at the same time, it's kind of like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. But I had a lot of fun with this list. It was a great year for movies. I saw a lot this year. So I'm very happy with that. Honorable mentions. Some of them I was able to kind of completely take off this list, rather because I thought they weren't going to show here in Michigan, but they ended up showing here right before the end of the year, so I had some additions on the list for those. But some of these, for the most part, are just films that didn't open in Michigan wide enough to where I could see them either earlier in the year or just by now, to where I don't want to see them in 2018 and put them on this list, and I might not put them on the New Year list. I'm kind of weird about that. So anyways, honorable mentions and movies I haven't seen. Wakefield with Bryan Cranston. I was really looking forward to this. It didn't show wide around me earlier in the year, so I'm kind of upset about that. Tonya Harding movie, looks great. Hostiles, the new Scott Cooper movie with Christian Bale. The Post, Spielberg, Street, Hanks, obviously looks great. Heard great things. Phantom Thread, Paul Thomas Anderson's one of my favorites, and to reteam with Daniel Day-Lewis is like, obviously fucking incredible. And I had two funny ones I just wanted to throw on here because they were two TV movies I thought were awesome this year. These are two of my favorite TV shows, and I thought their movies they came out with this year were really, really good or just a lot of fun. That is Psych, the Psych movie, and Hey Arnold, the Jungle movie. So I had to get those out of the way. So those are some additions on the honorable mentions as well. But let's get into it again. The first 10 I'm going to kind of talk about, not as much, but obviously I have enough time to probably talk about these more so. So at number 20, oh God, this one was difficult for some stupid reason, but I picked Detroit. This was one of the films that I was mentioning kind of earlier, how I remember seeing it and loving it, and then I sort of forgot about it. It got lost in the shuffle, but as I sort of started rethinking about it, the more I was so blown away by what Catherine Bigelow did. At first off, making this seem like it was one complete movie, because it's a lot of different movies going on. But I thought every part of it is handled well. The motel scene is still the most horrific thing I think I've seen in a movie. One of the most this year. This movie was not a drama or suspense film. It was a fucking horror movie. Everyone did a phenomenal job, and it's one of those things where it could have came out around the end of the year to get an award buzz, but it obviously came out at the time of the Detroit riots of the anniversary. So I just think as a piece of work, this is a very important one. It's not an easy watch, but it's still a great one, so I'm glad to kind of put this back on the list. 19, speaking of horror movies, probably another horror movie this year is The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Colin Farrell reunites with the Lobster director, Yorgos. His rest of his name. I'm not going to pronounce him. He's a beautiful Greek man, and I don't want to fuck his name up. Nicole Kidman joins this one as well. Barry Keoghan, I believe, is how you say his last name. If not, once again, I just fucked his name. The kid that was in Dunkirk. We know. Pretty much this film, even though I don't love it as much as The Lobster, it's still as horrifying, but it's darker and it's more disturbing, and just the actual themes about this film made me think about it more and more. It's not an easy sit through. I love the Kubrick-esque feel of it too, and yeah, there's really not much more I could say without spoiling it. I think it's definitely a movie that if you want to endure it, you should, but it's a film, all right. A24, shout out to you. Speaking of A24, at number 18, The Disaster Artist. I loved it when I first saw it. Again, I think over time I was like, okay, I could see the things, and I'm like, yeah, this is not whatever. But, finally getting around to watching The Room and then watching this movie, it was one of the most, heartfelt things I think I've watched. I thought the performances were great. And, yes, it's very funny, but again, there's such a dark emotion to it. And it kind of pulls at the heartstrings of wanting to be a creator. So this was definitely that film, and I think I think you can enjoy it without seeing The Room, and I think you get a little bit more out of it with seeing The Room. So I think both ways it's great. So at number 17 we got Coco, Pixar's Coco. Yes, there was a lot of typical stuff in it, and I think there was definitely some jokes we've seen in other kinds of movies before, but I think for the most part it was a very defining Pixar film. I think there was a lot of creative things. I think this is the most I've cried in a film this year. There's, I kind of expected it to get emotional near the end, but there's a lot of really interesting surprises early on that I was like, fuck, here we go. And also the music's great. Performances are great. I think Gael Garcia Bernal is one of the highlight performances in the film, obviously. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, very heartfelt. I think it's kind of the perfect combination of what a Pixar film is. It's a good kids movie, but I think it's also a good film for like adults. So at number 16, we got Blade Runner 2049, a very divisive film. I've seen nobody say anything but great things on the internet, but I definitely know people that have thought it's boring, and I understand. Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite directors. I think he's been outstanding with everything he's put out, and this was a film that, here's the thing, I'm going to say something that's very blasphemous. I was never a big Blade Runner guy, so to see this film and to feel what this film was doing, I took so much more from it. I think there's a lot more going on. Even though I've seen certain things in other movies, I still think that even though it's long and I get why people think it's boring, like I'm fine with that whole sentiment, but for me, I think everything about it was just very well done, and I think the most gorgeous movie I've seen all year too. It's great. Ryan Gosling's good. Harrison Ford comes back and gives a great performance. I think it was great. Number 15, we got Thor Ragnarok, superhero movie, gone insane. Jeff Goldblum, probably one of the best performances in any movie all fucking year. Jeff Goldblum just is living it up. It's zany, it's fun, it's just absolutely, Taika just kind of came into this world and just blew it out of the water. And, I think there's still a lot of great heart to it. There's a lot of great emotion, but it's also just crazy and fun. And the whole Hulk dynamic is great too. And yeah, I was very much looking forward to this movie. So I'm glad it ended up being as well as it was. At number 14, Wind River. I don't want to say too much about this movie. I just want to mention it because Taylor Sheridan finally directs this movie. Hell or High Water was great. Sicario was great. This was a movie that it's not this over-the-top amazing movie, but once it gets to kind of the reveal and the suspense near the last act and the final, sort of shot in the film, that's when I'm like, this elevated from just a good movie to a phenomenal movie to me. So definitely worth checking out. 13, Dunkirk. This would have been lower on the list because I think the first time I saw it, I was really in love with it. And then once again, I sort of was dying down on it. I saw it in film once, and then I saw it in IMAX when they re-released it. And I think seeing it again in IMAX asserted my confirmations that, Nolan being my favorite sort of filmmaker, I was very thrown off by how this film was. And I don't necessarily think it's this over-the-top achievement that everyone thinks it is. At the same time, I think what it's trying to do is done well, and I was very impressed by it. And, it's just a movie about survival, and I think that's kind of all it needed to be, and it was a unique war movie in that regard. So I thought it was well made, and it's a masterful made movie because it's Nolan. So 12, Mother. Probably the most horrifying film I've seen all year. It's one of the most intense films I've seen all year, and I hate the people that think it's this garbage movie. I mean, I don't think if you don't like it, you're annoying. It's more of it's not a movie for everybody. I think it definitely was marketed wrong, but at the same time, I fucking thought this movie was amazing, and I was not hooked to the screen on this, so definitely a great film. Number 11, we got Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird. Yes, Lady Bird, A24 coming in again. All I really want to say about this film is I agree with everything that everyone says. It, definitely hits certain beats, but at the same time, there's actually some stuff I haven't seen too much in coming-of-age movies, and I love the take on this film, and I love sort of the approach, and Saoirse Ronan's great in it, and, the rest of the cast, and it's just, I don't think there's much more I can say about this film that no one else has. I'd like to, put it into other films that I know not a lot of people have seen, which is why, as we get into our top 10, I am here to talk about a film that I know not a lot of people saw this year. It's called Novitiate. Melissa Leo is kind of the main star. It's a film about a bunch of young ladies becoming nuns in, I believe, the 60s or the 50s. I believe it's around that time. And it's sort of the time when the Vatican's changing to be more inclusive, to be more diverse, to kind of open up its rules. And I went into this movie, I remember seeing the trailer being interested, but I was not thinking it was going to hold me this much. Like, when I was pissed that when I finally saw Silence last year, that I wanted that on my 2016 list because it was just amazing. But for some reason, there's something about religion for me in movies. If done right, it's phenomenal. And I'm like more of a spiritual kind of person. I'm not really religious at fucking all. But this film was just eloquently crafted. Excuse the fuck out of me. It was just, the performances were great. And I think, again, the ending, like the last minute and the last line made my heart just like stop. It was such an intense tale. The idea of the old fighting with the new and sort of who you want to be and sort of how you're approached by things in life and kind of what your path is. It was such an intriguing look, and it's if you please, if you haven't seen this movie, because I know probably a lot of people haven't heard of it, please go see it. It's a great watch. Number 9, the Meyerowitz Stories, new and selected, the new Noah Baumbach movie. I was sort of excited about this movie, hearing all the stuff about Sandler, but, I stayed for Ben Stiller. I stayed for Dustin Hoffman. I, stayed for Emma Thompson. I stayed for a film that I was kind of expecting to be this really quirky, like, okay, like, I think it's going to be something that I'll enjoy. And then when it all hits, like, that's the thing, is like, about family drama movies can go so well or so bad, and this one I think is so good. And the acting is phenomenal, and the writing's phenomenal, and the way it shifts is so beautiful and just masterfully done. And it's, it obviously pulls at a lot of what I sort of look at in life, and I think the reason why this film stood out to me is just because of what Noah was trying to do with the family dynamics, and then plus just sort of the ideas of feeling like you could have had a purpose and then you don't find it, and then the idea of fighting with your siblings and just how you come together during a time of need. But I think it's done in a way that's not hammy. And again, it was a film when I first saw, I loved, and then I kind of thought about it more and more again, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely an excellent film. So awesome. Number 8, we got Logan. Not much more that needs to be said. It's a great way to finalize Wolverine in film with Hugh Jackman. Hugh and Patrick Stewart together are underrated, I think, because we're so used to them being so great. These are, I think, the best performances they've had as these characters. It's violent, it's haunting, it's beautiful. I think the second time watching it, that was the thing. I think watching it a second time was what made me love it, because I think the first time I didn't get a pull as much as I think I was thinking I would. And then I remember when I kind of even knew what was going to happen, it pulled me in. Again, it's a simple story, but it's just how it's made, and sort of the release of it finally being an R-rated Wolverine movie, I think helps. I don't think it's overdone. I think it's done for the sake of the character. So, and number 7, we got Baby Driver, Edgar Wright. Holy crap. This just... I remember being so excited about this, but I didn't think it was going to be this fucking crazy. The idea of how this film was put together was great. Ansel Elgort was phenomenal in it too. Obviously, the rest of the cast was as well, but he just shines so much in this film, and just the pacing and just the way it's shot and made. And, Edgar Wright is one of my favorite film directors. Obviously, I think he's a great creative mind, but oh my gosh, this film was just so well done. The opening chase scene, I think that's all I need to say. Once again, I think this is a movie where I don't need to say much more than just, you obviously just need to watch it. Number 6, we got a late edition of Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. I love the kind of comparison to King Kong it's been getting. Sally Hawkins is amazing. I'm glad that Doug Jones is finally getting his sort of Andy Serkis moment, because he's been phenomenal in all of Guillermo's work, and I think he's one of the most underrated actors because he's so good at what he does, but with the type of actor he is. This movie made me bawl my eyes out. It was, Michael Stuhlbarg and Michael Shannon and Octavia Spencer and Richard Jenkins. Oh my God, Richard Jenkins. Shit. this film is about being an outsider, no matter who you are. And it's done in such a way that I was just falling in love with it, and you just feel for Doug Jones, and you just feel for these people, and it's a special film, and it's something that Guillermo is one of the few people that can do a film like this and make it this amazing. So, well done. Number 5 is another film that not a lot of people I know saw, but I think it was one that was kind of brought up a lot, which is Brigsby Bear. This is sort of my film of the year when it comes to the idea of making films and being passionate about stuff. I did not expect to get emotional during this, but I did. Kyle Mooney. Obviously, I knew him for his web stuff before SNL, and he's hilarious, and there's such a warmth to him, and it blows me away. There's so many surprises in this film, and I don't want to say too much more, because I think it's such a cool thing to go in not knowing anything, but just, oh my god, like, the pacing of this film is so great, and it's one of those things where there's such an awkward line that has to be drawn in the film that could have easily fucked up, but they do it so brilliantly, and it's marvelous. It was phenomenal. So good. Number 4, we got 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. This is probably the film of the year when it comes to every character being so well written, so well rounded. I understood every character's point of view. Every character was written beautifully, no matter how long they were on screen for. Francis McDermott, Sam fucking Rockwell, most underrated actor of our generation. I fucking love him. His arc is so good. He reminded me of Walton Goggins from Hateful Eight. He had that kind of performance. Woody Harrelson, John Hawkes, his sort of younger wife he now has, Peter Dinklage. Who else? Lucas Hedges is in it. Man, it's it's so good. It is so good. And just in general, like, just the social topics of this movie, even though I think it's very heavy and it's very kind of not necessarily cynical, but it's just very dark with how it handles it and mean-spirited in certain ways. I don't think it's mean-spirited in a bad way. Like, I think it handles it very well. And there's just so many lines in this movie where I was just like, I wanted to cheer. Like, it was so good. Just go see this movie if you have the chance. It's dark, but I think it's done in a way that I think we've never seen in a movie. And I think, it was just a great movie. So I'm just going to move on from that because I think I'm going to talk about that movie too long. Number 3, late edition of Call Me By Your Name. Yes, yes, yes. I thought I was not going to be able to see this movie by the end of the year, but here's the thing. This movie, watching it, I got why people liked it. And I kind of had to accept that, yes, it's a very slow movie. It takes its time on purpose. But when you sort of let it all hit you at the end, especially Stuhlbarg's, speech, it pretty much broke me. And then the last shot of the film, God, it's Luca, Luca and Timothy and Army and Michael and, the rest of the family in the film and all the other cast and the crew especially. Like, this was such an eloquent looking film. I'm having a hard time with that word. I'm in love with this movie so much. There's such an interesting kind of dynamic in this film when it comes to the way it looks and kind of how it makes emotions feel, and just the idea of being an adolescent and not knowing what to do, and it's just so unique. And Sufjan Stevens, oh my god, shout out, hometown hero. He has, I've been listening to those 2 songs even before this movie came out. Now when I see them in the context of the movie, it makes me more emotional. So bravo, guys, bravo. Number 2, A24 coming in, getting a high spot on the list as always. Good Time. Robert Pattinson, probably my favorite performance of the year by an actor. It's like Nightcrawler on acid. It's intense. Benny Safdie was also great, who was a co-director of the film. The Safdie brothers directing it and Josh co-writing it. Man, it's intense and it's very dark, but I think it's a ride that you need to take because it goes in places that you're not expecting, and it's so fucking just brilliant. And like I said, it's really just Nightcrawler on acid. That's what it reminded me of, and it's darker too. And I think what it's trying to say is just so interesting. And again, I think just so much of it is with Robert Pattinson's performance. And it's just such a fun ride, even though it's kind of disgusting at sometimes. It's really disturbing. But yeah, good time. Good time. It was a good time. But at number 1, if the review is back up by now, you should go watch my review of it because I talked so much about this movie, how much I love it. But you know what? I saw it early in the year. I jumped on before everyone started talking about it, let it sit with me, watched it again recently, and it was as good as I thought and a huge surprise. And that is Raw. It's Raw. It's a weird, dark coming-of-age movie about cannibalism, and there's so many great dynamics, and the characters are so interesting, and just the intensity of the film. It's not overdone. That was the thing that kind of made me nervous, was I was going into this movie with everyone saying they were passing out and puking, but it's not really overdone. I mean, there's some gnarly stuff that happens, but it's done in a very masterful and classy way to serve the story. And again, like, there's just something that pulled me into this film that is still very fascinating. Like, watching it again, it was like, it's just one of those things where I think when we see foreign films, there's such a different look about them that we find so intriguing that we don't want to personally live maybe sometimes. Like that, it reminded me of The Tribe in that way, where I'm watching, I'm like, I would not want to be living here and dealing with this. But at the same time, it's like you're still kind of like in awe of it. So, this film could have been so like, this film could have been one of those things where it's like, it was fun to see and then it was like whatever. But I'm telling you guys right now, if you have time, it's on Netflix, go watch it, because it's good. It's short, and it's just, it goes by so quick. I think it's great, and the writing is great too, and the acting and all that. So, yes, we are here. I actually ended up going longer than I thought, but you know what? I want to talk about all these movies, even though I think a lot of them I just kind of rambled on about the same stuff. So once again, please tell me what some of your favorite movies are in the comments below. Maybe are they on the list, maybe they're not. And if not, then please don't be mad. But other than that, thank you guys so much for a great 2017. Obviously, we're in 2018 now, so hopefully you guys had a good new year once again. I'm hoping to come back with videos. Follow me on Twitter to get updates on that. And I hope that we can get some stuff going soon. But again, I had a lot of fun with this. And once again, I thank you guys so much for watching. And thank you so much for tuning into ChannelBK. Peace out, guys.